We are in Photopea and we're going to do our first set of adjustments for brightness contrast. We're going to do a levels adjustment and we're going to convert to black and white, and we're also going to try cropping an image. So I'm just going to go to File and choose Open. I'm using my downloads. I'm going to select an image from my downloads folder. We're using Photopea because it's consistent. I'm a little worried about Photoshop shutting down on us, so I just prefer to do the demos in Photopea so that I know everybody will be able to use it. So we're taking a look. We're in Photopea. It has a very similar setup to Photoshop. Left toolbar here, whenever you roll over these tools, they're going to name themselves, and we'll be using a variety of them for different manipulations and techniques. Today we will be using the crop tool. We'll get to that in a moment. Over here is the layers palette. You can see it's titled layers, and this is showing us all of the different actions that we apply to the image. Right here is the background image. So this is what we've opened, and we also have history open, and this is going to show us in order all of the different things that we do while we have the image open today. Okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to try cropping the image, and there's a couple different ways to do this. You can use the crop tool. Okay, you'll see I've rolled over it here and I'm selecting it, and it's going to bring up this grid, which you can then access. You can drag from the corners, and you can kind of like, let's say that we wanted this to be tighter, and once you're happy, the area that is lit up is what is going to remain, and the area in shadow is what will be removed. When you press return, you apply that change. Okay, I can use history to go back to the previous step so I can see it when it hasn't been cropped. Another way to crop an image is to use this rectangle marquee or rectangle select tool, and this allows you to just sort of create the selection by dragging it around the image. And once I've got the part of the image that I'd like to have cropped exterior to that rectangle, then I go to image and I select crop, and I can also crop in that fashion. So I can just move back. You can do it either way. There's usually more than one way to execute an action in Photopea or Photoshop. So I'm going to use the rectangle marquee, and I'm just going to reduce the size of this image just for the sake of practicing cropping. Okay, so that's my first change. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to black and white, and I'm going to do that through the layers palette. I'm going to do an adjustment layer, and you can see that when I roll over this circle that is half white and half black, that allows me to access all of these different adjustments. Okay, so I'm looking for the black and white, and once I've clicked on that, I can see the change to black and white. We want to make these changes through the layers palette so that we can always toggle them on and off, so that we can remove an adjustment by putting it in the trash can without changing the original image. Okay, so this is non-destructive editing where we retain the integrity of the original image, and we simply apply adjustment layers on top, kind of like in a stack in the layers palette. And that way we can always kind of go back and make changes if we want to. So I've got a black and white adjustment layer, which I've asked you guys to do for the assignment. The next adjustment is a levels adjustment. And we talk about levels when we click on the levels adjustment. This chart comes up. This is called a histogram. It looks like a mountain, and it's showing us all of the representation of the values in the image, the light and dark areas of the image. And we can make changes to this by moving the sliders. And all that I want to do is I want to kind of reset where these sliders are so that they're in line with where the dark values in the image begin. Okay, so by moving the slider in, I'm going to be able to get I'm going to reset where 100% black is visible, and I'm going to do the same thing with the white slider, and you'll see that it's a very subtle change, but we now have a greater representation of all the values in the image. Now the middle slider, the gray slider, you can see as I move it to the left, the image becomes overexposed, and I can kind of slowly move it to the right until I feel like I'm hitting the right balance. Like this is too dark, so I kind of come back and see. Okay, and that's my levels adjustment. And you can kind of look, it's a very subtle change, okay, but it gives us a better range of value, and you can see that the dark areas are crisper and more black with that adjustment, okay? The next adjustment we're going to apply is a brightness contrast adjustment, and this is probably something that you're more familiar with doing in phone when you're editing, and you can see, like, I'm just going to crank the brightness up a bit here. I'm going to increase the contrast a little bit. I'm trying to do something very exaggerated so you can kind of see a difference. Recognize that I'm using an image from stock photography, so the photographer's probably already made these adjustments. However, we want to give it a go. Okay, so you can see that I've done a brightness contrast adjustment. I did my levels adjustment. I did my black and white. And I also cropped. Okay, so you're going to make those changes for each of the images you have. That's going to help you to practice where you access these adjustments through the layers palette, the adjustment layer button here, using the crop tool, or potentially using the rectangle marquee to crop, however you prefer. Once you've done those adjustments and you've cropped the image, you're going to go to File, Save as Photoshop Document, Save as PSD. You're going to use your last name, and you're going to call it adjustment 1, okay, for your first image. I'm going to save this on my desktop. I'm going to save. We want to save it with the PSD ending as a Photoshop document, because that means that when it's opened, again, we can access all of these layers, okay, so I can see that you did the edits correctly. All right, so that's it. Saved as a Photoshop document, and your next step is going to be posting that to the assignment thread. Okay.